Welcome to the Q series on the Sixth Suite. I'm Nikki Stone, here with Claire Ravenstreet. And for this special run, we're coming to you straight from Cannes.
Usually, we're unpacking the architecture of business and media, but this week, things are moving fast. We're cutting through the noise of the Croisette to bring you exactly what you need to know.
We're dropping a special Cannes wrap-up of the highest signal insights, biggest shifts, and straight talk from the ground.
You won't want to miss a beat. Hit subscribe and follow right now so the latest intel lands directly in your feed.
And while we're here celebrating the peak of the industry, we're also dedicating this series to the people who build it. That's why we're proudly raising awareness for NABS, the National Advertising Benevolent Society.
NABS is the vital safety net for Canadian media and advertising professionals, providing everything from financial assistance to mental wellness support when our community needs it most.
We've linked them in the show notes below, so please take a minute to learn more and support their mission. Now, let's start the clock.
Sixers, my name is Jeff McCann. I'm the head of Canada for Silverpush. We're a contextual advertising firm helping brands solve marketing challenges using contextual AI. I've been in the business almost 2 decades now, which is wild to say. And I'm really passionate about getting the opportunity to work on some of these amazing campaigns that not only solve business problems, but really, I think, help the world at large when it comes to a brand like Kids Help Phone.
Yeah, I mean, you helped real people, solve real crisis problems. And the reason that we loved it even more than the fact that it was Kids Help Phone, which side rant, Claire's not here to keep me on the rails today. So side rant it is. When I was a teenager and I worked at Blue Notes, I was the assistant manager at Blue Note, late teens going through college, and their charity was Kids Help Phone. So we did a lot, like we had the gift boxes that we sold, raised money for Kids Help Phone. So we knew a lot about Kids Help Phone from that standpoint. And then as a human, I mean, they are such an amazing charity. I know a lot of young people that have leaned into them over the years personally, that have shared their stories with me. And so I'm so privileged to be here having this conversation and talking about the award-winning work that you guys did with your partners. Tell us just a smidge about the campaign.
Well, for sure, they're an iconic Canadian charity, and we all grew up, hearing about them. When I talk about our work on this, we're really supporting the great concept from Epitaph Group and McCann Creative Agency. How it all came together was Epitaph Group reached out to us and said, "Hey, Jeff, we want to break YouTube's brand safety algorithm and advertise in these places that would normally be commercially irrelevant, that they are the things that people want to avoid and are just naturally eliminated from campaigns. They're brand unsafe, certainly brand unsuitable."
And why is that?
There are videos related to self-harm and depression and suicide and eating disorders. And one of the main sort of pillars that Kids Help Phone and McCann and Epitaph had done was they used the data that they saw from the requests or the calls coming into Kids Help Phone. They scrubbed them so they're entirely privacy compliant. But they identified, okay, these are the top, I think there was about 20 different, pillars that kids were calling in about. They were able to identify the areas of the country that were most prevalent for those specific areas. And then they ran creatives in those specific pockets, targeting specific issues for kids. The role that Silverpush played in this was developing a contextual framework and using our technology in reverse. It's usually meant to identify a brand ambassador or a pair of Nike sneakers, for example. In this sense, we're identifying content related to self-harm. So it wasn't necessarily that somebody might be cutting themselves in the video, but it would be a story from a young person about when they would cut themselves or what they were going through, about eating disorders, et cetera, et cetera. McCann Creative developed hundreds and hundreds of different creative variants. And so when we discovered that content, we sort of whitelisted it into their campaign and we served the most relevant advertising for kids in times of need. Something it involved engineering on our side, it involved account management, we really took the concept and ran with it. And I think the outcome, speaks for itself. I'm just thrilled to support those partners.
I mean, the outcomes are saving children's lives. I mean,
Yeah.
that outcome is the most incredible outcome of any campaign ever. And the most meaningful work I think we can do in this industry is use our powers for good. But I immediately also want to just dive in for a second, because you said you had to like reverse engineer, like so Silverpush, contextually relevant AI targeting, and they understand what's sort of happening in there. And you have to reverse engineer through all of that. Whenever I've pushed my boundaries and barriers with my teams in the past like that, we've uncovered almost like 2.0 versions of our product. Did you guys find that because you had to break your own product, that you ended up catapulting like next level forward on the main product?
There has been products that have come from this. They're not geared towards the same use case that Kids Help Phone was using. But for example, we realized, okay, then there's no reason we can't also identify, for example, broadcast quality inventory on YouTube, where there's no metadata available that says this is broadcast quality inventory. You've got all of these broadcast buyers now who are starting to look for YouTube as a way to extend their broadcast buys and, to target cord cutters and whatnot.
Absolutely. I mean, our last episode that was just released of the podcast, the full length episode, we talked about how even podcasts have become part of the CTV premium content environment because the quality, right?
These were signals that we had not thought of to look for. By seeing how far and how deep we could go, it's helpful. And we realized that there were other avenues that we could explore as well. So we've launched products around broadcast quality, podcast, premium and trending content, etc.
Innovation is born when we test our barriers, right?
Born when you're curious. And I always say that my success at Silverpush, specifically with a very entrepreneurial company, is because I'm a tinkerer. I'm a tinkerer at home. I tinker around the garage and fix it, this and that, and it extends into my work. So I'm constantly asking questions about exploring new ways to do things. If there's a new process that we can implement that's going to make our account management team's life easier or sales easier or better, then we do that.
Love a curious mind.
Yes.
I swear I get mine from my mom, and I can remember my dad always saying to my mom, "Killed the cat." And my mom's retort was always, "Well, satisfaction brought it back." I just kind of need to know what happens does it get better? And as an ROI nerd, I love when contextual relevant things are there because I know how much they perform from an ROI perspective.
It's hard to measure our ROI on a, upper funnel campaign like this, but so many campaigns are just targeting commercially irrelevant content that's not meant to be. No brand manager was like, yes, I want to be running on the music channel that's like nobody sees, that sits over here on my phone, or I want to be Fortune 500 company. I want to be selling cars on kids content, for example. So just eliminating that and using context, just eliminating that part is a way for brands to just outperform their competitors with contextual advertising. And just identifying, if you had a wish list, what is the content that you would love to be advertising within? And I think that's what's fun about Silverpush is you have the ability to have those types of discussions with brands. The insights that we surface are really, okay, look, this brand ambassador performed better than this brand ambassador. And it can inform things so far up the sort of the chain into creative and influencer deals and all sorts of things.
You're absolutely right. And I think we really saw that in Cannes, full throttle, right? That in real life moments of the brand and how those things comes together. The context is there because everyone's made it relevant to the region that you're in. All of that exists in real life. So when we try to replicate that in a digital area of the consumer journey and experience, when we get it wrong, it feels wrong. Like it doesn't make the same impact. We're like, why am I seeing this? It's a negative experience, but when we get it right, it feels so natural in the context of where it is. And that's what makes a big part of, like we say, from a YQ perspective, our 3Q, the intellectual, the emotional, and the contextual quotients and their significance.
Yeah.
And I just loved this campaign because it really hit all of those triggers of, it was very smart. The emotional resignation was absolutely there. And the contextual relevancy was the thing that really drove that final impact of somebody making that final step of picking up the phone, of asking for support, of reaching out, of taking that next step. And if we replicate that same thing in a consumer funnel, it's the same process. You need to appease those different parts of the brain in order for your teams to take action. It needs to appease those three parts because that's the whole human that we're talking about. And when we tell somebody the why in Kids Help Phone, I think that's really clear. We're trying to protect children. It just blends it together in the most beautiful ways possible. In this campaign, we fell in love with it from a YQ perspective, from a personal perspective as well. And just wanted to give you guys the teams that like put the work into this, that thought of this, the recognition, because it's 3 Cannes Lions.
I wish I could have been there this year. I decided to sit this one out, and then I heard from the fine folks at Epitaph. I was like, damn it, I wish I was there right now. But yeah, we as marketers and advertisers, like, we know the stuff that you just talked about, Nikki, to be true, or we feel that. But I think when an ad makes sense, it's in the right environment, it's targeting the right type of content, that a consumer will pay more attention to it. We have a lot of attention research that backs that up. We're a partnership with Lumen that has really validated that attention and direct visual focus on ads is driving the cost of your ads down, is delivering the type of attention required to actually change minds and change behaviors and whatnot. But also, I just think that consumers get that too. Like, consumers do feel those tight sort of integration, and a car ad on a car review site, a Chanel ad on a Vanity Fair, just people feel it and they sense it and appreciate it.
We work with one of our clients, and they do a ton in the attention space, anonymized always, and privacy by design, which I know you already had mentioned earlier about that. And that's so critical in my world as well. And it's been interesting to see and follow how consumers' attention, what they engage with, right? Video absolutely has more engagement. Where their eyes shift, what coloring works, all of those things. And you had mentioned that McCann had sort of done a lot of different creatives for this one. I think that just sort of errs to the side of how important that truly is today, that dynamic creative optimization, so that you can get that context within the context, right? Jeff, we have rambled on for far, far, far too long today, so I will cut us there. But I have one last question for you, for our Sixers, not for health, not for wealth or business, but just for life. If you had one piece of life advice for our Sixers, what would that be?
Oh boy. Well, I think I'm going to go back to this tinkering thing, because it has helped me in my career, Nikki. And tinkering, I guess, is another word for curiosity, and just constantly trying to get better and moving forward slowly. I always tell my sellers at Silverpush, you're going to hear things like, we need X amount of meetings a week, and we need to hit this sales deadline. And there's a ton of pressure from that. And I always say, just take a breath, and we are just going to be consistent and thoughtful in everything that we do. And I think if you can do that, be just consistent and thoughtful over time, you're going to beat any sort of like sprint or craziness. So I guess that would be my advice. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We're going to have long careers in this business, in our marriages and our friendships and with our kids. So let's just be consistent and thoughtful. And I think that's the way to win life.
I think it resonates. I saw a video the other day, and he's a marathon runner, and he was talking about, he's trying to get 2% better. He got 2% better last year. Like, it was a 2% goal of like that consistency, that drive, looking for those little areas of optimization, playing with it, like tinkering, like you said, because it is a marathon and we are here for the ride of life. I think we do often forget that life is about the journey. You're hoping to get to the longest destination, the most joyful destination possible along the way, and embrace all that life has. Keep tinkering with yourself and improve with yourself.
It was a pleasure to be here and chat with you.
If you've pulled value from this quick hit, we want to hear from you.
This entire series is about showing where business is going and dropping life advice genuinely worth sharing. If today's wrap-up gave you a new perspective, send this episode to 3 people you want to see succeed.
And we want to keep the conversation going in the comments, so drop your absolute best piece of life advice below. What's the one rule that you operate by?
Subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll see you for the next Can Dispatch on the 6th Suite.